I'm Mike, and I've been married to Jessica for 9 years. We met in college, dated for 5 years, and tied the knot in 2015. For the most part, our marriage felt solid, at least to me. We were the kind of couple that had matching mugs and inside jokes, but I never realized just how much of that was a facade until recently. Now, I'm sitting here wondering if it was all a lie. The first signs were subtle. Jessica started being unusually guarded with her phone. She used to leave it lying around the house, but now it was always face down or tucked away. She claimed it was because she didn't want to be distracted during quality time, which seemed reasonable, but something about it didn't sit right with me. Then there were the work trips. She works in marketing, and while travel wasn't unusual, she started going on trips more frequently. She'd come back with vague stories about client dinners and conferences, but there was always something off. The last trip she took, she came home wearing a necklace I'd never seen before. When I asked about it, she laughed and said, "Oh, it's just something I picked up while shopping with colleagues." Something about her tone felt rehearsed. I ignored my gut for months because I didn't want to be that husband, the one who doubts his wife without solid proof. But the nagging feeling wouldn't go away, and now I'm starting to wonder if I've been blind to the truth. I don't know if it was instinct, paranoia, or just desperation to prove myself wrong, but last Thursday, I decided to go through Jessica's phone. Before you crucify me, hear me out. Something wasn't adding up, and I needed to know if I was the problem or if she was hiding something. Jessica had gone to the gym, her usual Thursday routine, leaving her phone charging in the kitchen. That never happened. She was practically surgically attached to that thing. I took it as a sign. My hands were shaking as I unlocked it. I knew her passcode. It hadn't changed since she said it years ago. The first thing I checked was her messages. Nothing unusual there. Then I moved to her emails. Again, nothing. I was starting to feel foolish when I opened her photo gallery. At first, it looked normal. Pictures of our dog, selfies, random shots of sunsets. But then, buried in a folder labeled Receipts, I found them. Pictures. Of her and a man I didn't recognize. They were at some fancy restaurant, glasses of wine in hand, laughing. Another shot showed them sitting way too close on a couch, his hand resting on her thigh. My stomach twisted. But the worst one? A blurry selfie of them in what was unmistakably a hotel room bed. Jessica's hair was messy, and she was grinning like a teenager in love. I wanted to throw the phone across the room, but I couldn't stop scrolling. There were text screenshots in the folder too. Messages between Jessica and someone saved as Elliot Blackheart. They weren't graphic, just inside jokes, casual I love yous, and plans to meet up. But they hit harder than any explicit detail ever could. This wasn't just a fling. It was emotional. It was deep. My vision blurred, my chest tightening like a vice. I could hear my heartbeat pounding in my ears. I put the phone back exactly where I found it, my mind racing. She'd be back from the gym any minute. What the hell was I supposed to do? When she walked in, she was all smiles, chatting about how packed the gym was and asking if I'd started dinner yet. I couldn't even look at her. I just mumbled something about needing fresh air and bolted out the door. My world was crumbling, and Jessica was acting like everything was perfectly normal. I sat in my car for what felt like hours, replaying every interaction we'd had over the past few months. All the little things I'd brushed off, her being too tired for intimacy, the way she'd started dressing up more for work, her sudden obsession with spin classes, they all clicked into place. This wasn't my imagination. My wife was cheating on me. And now, I had proof. That night, I barely slept. My mind was a storm of anger, hurt, and disbelief. How could Jessica, my Jessica, do this? I couldn't look at her the same way. Every time she smiled at me, I saw the smirk from that hotel selfie. Every time she spoke, I wondered how many lies were laced in her words. By morning, I'd decided I couldn't keep it bottled up. I needed answers. She was sitting at the kitchen table, scrolling on her laptop with her hair tied back in a messy bun. She looked so innocent, so normal, and it made my stomach churn. "We need to talk," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. Jessica looked up, surprised. "Sure, what's up?" she asked, her tone light but cautious. I pulled out my phone and opened one of the pictures from her Receipts folder. I slid it across the table. "What's this?" Her face went pale. It was as if someone had sucked all the blood out of her body. Her hands trembled slightly as she picked up the phone. Mike, I can explain. Explain what, Jess? I snapped, my voice rising. Explain why you're in a hotel bed with some guy? Or why you've been lying to my face for God knows how long? She stammered, her words tumbling out in pieces. It's not what it looks like. That's Elliot. He's the colleague. Those pictures are innocent, I swear. Innocent? I barked, laughing bitterly. You mean to tell me it's innocent to take selfies in a hotel bed with someone who's not your husband? To call them babe and tell them you love them? Jessica's eyes widened, and I could see her realizing the full scope of what I knew. You went through my phone? Oh, don't you dare try to flip this on me, I said, slamming my hand on the table. If you weren't sneaking around with your colleague, I wouldn't have needed to. She stood up, crossing her arms defensively. You had no right to invade my privacy, and you had no right to cheat on me. The room fell silent except for the sound of her breathing, shallow and quick. Finally, she muttered, It wasn't serious. It didn't mean anything. Didn't mean anything? I repeated, stunned. You've been sneaking off to hotels, taking cutesy pictures, and exchanging I love yous with some guy, but it didn't mean anything? Are you even hearing yourself? She broke then, her voice cracking as she yelled back. You don't understand. You've been so distant, so wrapped up in your work and your routines. I felt invisible. Elliot noticed me. He made me feel alive again. I stared at her, my hands shaking. So, this is my fault? I asked, my voice dangerously low. Jessica's lip quivered, but she didn't answer. Let me make this crystal clear, I said, each word like venom. You had a choice. You could have talked to me. You could have told me you were unhappy. But instead, you chose to betray me. You don't get to blame me for your selfish, cowardly actions. She tried to reach for me, tears streaming down her face. Mike, please. I messed up, but we can fix this. I still love you. Love? I spat, stepping back. If this is what your love looks like, I want no part of it. Jessica collapsed into a chair, sobbing. But I couldn't stay there any longer. I grabbed my keys and walked out the door. The person I'd spent nearly a decade with was a stranger, and I didn't know if I'd ever be able to look at her the same way again. I drove aimlessly for hours after that. The sun was setting, casting a fiery orange glow over the city, but it felt like the world had gone gray for me. I kept hearing her words on repeat. He made me feel alive again. What the hell did that mean? Had I really been so absent that she felt invisible? Or was that just the excuse she told herself to justify stabbing me in the back? I eventually ended up in a park we used to visit when we first started dating. The irony wasn't lost on me. I sat on a bench, staring at the lake, the weight of everything pressing down on me like I was carrying a boulder on my chest. When I finally got home, it was past midnight. I half expected Jessica to be waiting in the living room, ready to unleash some desperate plea for forgiveness, but the house was quiet. Too quiet. I walked into the bedroom, and there she was, sitting on the edge of the bed, her face streaked with dried tears. She looked up at me, her eyes hollow. You didn't come home, she whispered. I ignored her and started gathering clothes. What are you doing? She asked, her voice trembling. I'm leaving, I said flatly, stuffing shirts and jeans into a duffel bag. Jessica stood up, panic flashing across her face. Mike, please, don't do this. We can talk. No, Jess, I cut her off, my voice cold. We talked earlier, and you lied, deflected, and blamed me for your affair. There's nothing left to say. Her hands shook as she reached for me. You're not even going to try? We've been together for almost 10 years. You're just going to throw it all away? I'm not the one who threw it away, I said, my voice breaking despite myself. You did that the second you chose him over me. She broke down, sinking to the floor in a heap. It wasn't like that, she cried. I made a mistake. I'm sorry, Mike. Please, just don't leave like this. I stopped packing and turned to her, my anger flaring again. Do you even hear yourself? You call it a mistake like you accidentally spilled coffee on my shirt. This wasn't a mistake, Jess. It was a choice. A deliberate, repeated choice. And now, you want to sweep it under the rug because it's inconvenient for you? She sobbed harder, but I didn't have it in me to comfort her. I zipped up my bag, grabbed my keys, and walked out. I spent the night at a cheap motel, lying on the rock-hard mattress, staring at the stained ceiling. My mind was a storm of questions. Why hadn't I seen this coming? Could I have done something to prevent it? Was there even a version of events where Jessica stayed faithful, or had this been inevitable? Sleep was impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that picture of her in the hotel bed, grinning like she didn't have a care in the world, like she wasn't destroying everything we'd built together. By morning, I made up my mind. I wasn't going to let her tears, her excuses, or her pleas pull me back into the mess she created. I deserved better than that. The next few days were a blur. I stayed at the motel, ignoring Jessica's calls and texts. Every time my phone buzzed, my stomach tightened, but I didn't have the energy to deal with her. The messages ranged from frantic apologies to angry accusations. Please, Mike, we can fix this. You're acting like a child, running away from your own marriage. I know you're hurt, but I love you. I swear I do. But love? Love didn't look like secret hotel rooms and sneaky phone folders. On the third day, I got a text from my best friend, Kyle. Dude, Jess called me. She's a mess. Said you're gone. What's going on? I froze. Of course, she tried to pull Kyle into this. He was my closest friend, but Jessica had always been friendly with him, too, probably hoping he'd take her side. I debated ignoring him, but decided he deserved the truth. I called him, and his voice came through immediately, tense and worried. Mike? What's happening? Jessica said you left her. Yeah, I said, my voice heavy. I did. Because she's been cheating on me. The line went silent for a moment. Holy shit, Kyle finally said. Are you serious? I told him everything. The pictures, the texts, the confrontation. By the time I finished, Kyle sounded just as angry as I felt. I can't believe this, he said. She always acted like she worshipped the ground you walked on. Well, guess she found someone else's ground to worship, I said bitterly. Kyle hesitated before speaking again. Mike, there's something I need to tell you. I wasn't sure if it was important before, but now, it might be. What? I asked, my stomach sinking. A few months ago, Jessica showed up at a party I was at. She said she was there for work, but I noticed she was hanging out with this guy the whole time. I thought maybe he was a coworker, but they looked close. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I let it go. Why the hell didn't you tell me? I snapped, my anger flaring. I didn't have proof. Kyle protested, and I didn't want to stir up drama over nothing. But now, hearing all this, he trailed off, sounding genuinely remorseful. I sighed, rubbing my temples. It's not your fault. I don't even know what I would have done if you told me back then. Probably just dismissed it like an idiot. I'm so sorry, man, Kyle said. Whatever you need, I'm here. If you want to crash at my place, say the word. Thanks, but I'm good for now, I said, though I wasn't sure I meant it. I just need to figure out my next steps. After the call, I felt even more rattled. If Jessica had been this bold about her affair, how many people knew? How many of our mutual friends had seen her with Elliot and said nothing? Fueled by suspicion, I logged into Facebook for the first time in months. Jessica's profile was a curated display of our perfect life, but as I scrolled through her recent posts, I noticed subtle clues I hadn't picked up on before, cryptic captions about finding happiness and pictures where she was smiling a little too brightly with people I didn't recognize. And then I saw it. A picture of her and Elliot, posted by one of her coworkers. They were at a charity event, standing shoulder to shoulder, their smiles practically glowing. The caption read, "Love seeing our dream team in action." I stared at the photo, my blood boiling. There it was, proof she wasn't even trying to hide him in public. She had dragged our marriage through the mud, and now it was on full display for anyone to see. I felt the weight of it all crashing down on me. Jessica's lies were bigger than I'd realized, and I wasn't sure how much more I could take. After seeing that picture, something inside me snapped. Up until that moment, I'd been drowning in my own pain. But now, I was angry. The kind of angry that makes your hands steady and your mind razor sharp. Jessica wanted to make a fool out of me? Fine. But she was about to learn that I wasn't the kind of guy you could cheat on and walk away from without consequences. I started planning. The first thing I did was call my lawyer. I'd been avoiding the legal stuff, hoping to give myself time to think. But after everything, I knew divorce was inevitable. I told him everything, including the photos and texts I'd found. He assured me that, given the evidence, the infidelity clause in our prenup would leave Jessica with next to nothing. Our house, our savings, even the car. She'd forfeit it all. The thought gave me a grim sense of satisfaction. But I wasn't done yet. I wanted her to feel the same humiliation and betrayal I'd been drowning in for days. My first move was to make sure Elliot's wife, or girlfriend, or whatever she was, knew the truth. A quick search on Jessica's social media gave me all the breadcrumbs I needed to find Elliot's profile. Sure enough, his relationship status was public. In a relationship with Emily Thomas. I clicked on Emily's profile and found a gallery of pictures of her and Elliot, vacations, birthdays, anniversaries. It was nauseating. Without overthinking it, I sent her a private message. Hi, Emily. I know this is going to be difficult to hear, but I have reason to believe your boyfriend, Elliot, has been having an affair with my wife, Jessica. I have proof, and I'm happy to share it with you. I attached one of the less explicit photos, the one of them laughing at the restaurant. I figured it was enough to start the conversation without being unnecessarily cruel. Emily responded within the hour. Her message was short and chilling. Send me everything. I did. The texts, the hotel photos, even the stupid charity event picture. Her response came minutes later. Thank you. You didn't deserve this. Neither did I. I didn't feel good about it, but I felt justified. If Jessica and Elliot wanted to play dirty, they'd have to deal with the fallout. Next, I turned my focus to her work. That charity event picture had been taken at one of Jessica's company functions, which meant her little escapades with Elliot had probably violated some company policy. I forwarded the photo and screenshots of their messages to her HR department with an anonymous note. 2 of your employees are engaging in an affair during work events, potentially jeopardizing your company's reputation. You might want to look into it. By the end of the week, Jessica was out of a job. She came home in tears, ranting about office politics and how unfair it was. I didn't say a word. The final piece of my plan was the house. We had agreed early on in our marriage that if we ever divorced, she'd keep the house since her parents had helped us with the down payment. But thanks to the prenup and her infidelity, she had no legal claim to it anymore. On Friday, I called a moving company. By Saturday afternoon, Jessica came home to find all her belongings boxed up and stacked in the garage. What the hell is this? She screamed, staring at the boxes. This, I said, leaning casually against the doorframe, is your life being packed up. You can grab it and go. Her face crumpled, and for a split second, I felt a pang of guilt. But then I remembered that hotel selfie and hardened myself. You can't do this, Mike, she cried. This is my house too. No, I said calmly. It's not. You broke the prenup when you cheated. The house is mine now, Jess. And as of Monday, so is your car. Consider it payment for the humiliation you put me through. She looked like she was about to argue, but I held up my hand. Don't bother. My lawyer's already filed the papers. You'll be getting served soon. Jessica collapsed onto the couch, sobbing. You're destroying me, she whispered. I laughed bitterly. You destroyed yourself the moment you decided to sleep with someone else. I'm just making sure you live with the consequences. As I closed the door behind me, leaving her alone with her tears and her lies, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. For the first time, I wasn't the victim in this story. I was in control. The fallout from my revenge felt good, almost too good. But it wasn't over. Jessica wasn't the type to go quietly. I should have known better. 3 days after serving her with divorce papers, I was at work, trying to focus on a project, when I got a call from Kyle. He sounded panicked. Mike, dude, you need to check your social media right now. What? I asked, confused. Why? Jessica's gone nuclear, he said. She posted some stuff about you. It's bad. My stomach dropped as I hung up and opened Facebook. There it was, plastered across her profile for all to see. A long, rambling post about how I was a controlling, emotionally abusive husband who had driven her into the arms of someone who actually cared about her. She had tagged me in the post, along with half our mutual friends. Comments were already piling up, some from people I hadn't spoken to in years. I always knew Mike had a dark side. Jessica, stay strong. You deserve better. Can't believe you put up with that for so long. My blood boiled. Jessica was spinning the narrative, painting herself as the victim and dragging my name through the mud. I wanted to scream, but instead, I typed out a single, calculated response. Jessica, it's funny how your story leaves out the part where you cheated on me for months with a coworker. I've got plenty of receipts if anyone needs clarification. I hit post and sat back, watching the comments turn into a war zone. Some people immediately sided with me. Wait, what? Jessica, is that true? Damn, Jess. If you cheated, you have no right to play the victim. Others doubled down on supporting her. Even if she cheated, it sounds like Mike pushed her to it. Relationships are complicated. None of us know what really happened. Jessica, of course, fired back. You have no idea how hard it was living with you, Mike. You were cold and distant for years. Elliot was there for me when you weren't. That was when Emily, the woman I had messaged about Elliot, entered the chat. Jessica, don't even start. My boyfriend didn't support you. He used you. He told me everything, including how you begged him to leave me. I hope it was worth it, because you've ruined 2 relationships. Boom. Mic drop. The comments exploded after that. People who had been on Jessica's side quickly backpedaled, while others simply watched the drama unfold like a soap opera. Jessica didn't respond again, and by the end of the day, her profile had gone dark. She'd either deleted her account or made it private. I should have felt triumphant, but instead, I just felt drained. This wasn't how I wanted things to go. I didn't want to be part of some public spectacle, airing dirty laundry for the world to see. But the real twist came later that night. Around 11 p.m., as I was settling into bed, my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. You think you've won, but you don't know the half of it. Call me if you want the truth. Emily. The truth? What else was there to know? Against my better judgment, I called. Emily picked up almost immediately. Mike, she said, her voice tight with barely concealed anger. I wasn't going to tell you this, but after today, I think you deserve to know. Jessica wasn't just cheating on you with Elliot. There's someone else too. My heart stopped. What are you talking about? Elliot admitted it after I confronted him, she said bitterly. He said Jessica was seeing another guy before him. Someone from her gym. Apparently, she's been juggling the 2 of them for almost a year. A year. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I couldn't speak, so Emily continued. Look, I know this isn't what you want to hear, but I thought you should know. Jessica isn't just unfaithful. She's a serial cheater. And you deserve better than someone like that. I hung up without saying much, my mind reeling. A second affair? How many lies had Jessica been telling? How deep did this betrayal go? I didn't sleep that night. All I could think about was the woman I had loved, the life we had built together, and how little I actually knew about her. If Jessica thought the divorce was messy before, she had no idea what was coming next. The revelation of a second affair left me reeling. I couldn't believe it. For a year, Jessica had been leading a double or triple life. The woman I thought I knew had shattered into a million unrecognizable pieces. The next morning, I decided I needed more answers. If she could lie to my face for this long, there was no telling what else she was hiding. I hired a private investigator to dig deeper. I wanted everything, every secret, every deception, uncovered. 2 weeks later, the investigator called me. Mike, he said, his voice cautious, I've got some information, but you might want to sit down for this. Just tell me, I said, gripping my phone tightly. He took a deep breath. Jessica wasn't just seeing Elliot and the guy from the gym. There's another man. A 4th one. What the hell? I whispered, feeling like the floor was falling out from under me. This one is different, he continued. He's older, early 50s, married, and well-connected. He's the CEO of the marketing firm Jessica used to work for. Based on what I found, It looks like their relationship started over 2 years ago, and he hesitated. And what? I demanded. The timing lines up with a big promotion Jessica got at work. It's possible she wasn't just having an affair. She might have been leveraging the relationship for career advancement. I was speechless. 2 years. 3 men. A promotion. This wasn't just infidelity. It was calculated manipulation. The investigator sent me copies of emails between Jessica and her boss. They were explicit and nauseating. Jessica had called him her rock and the only one who truly understands her. She'd even mentioned me, describing me as a nice guy who just doesn't get it. I felt like a fool. Not only had she betrayed me, but she'd also made me a footnote in her web of deceit. That night, as I stared at the evidence, I realized something. I couldn't keep living like this. Jessica had taken enough from me. My dignity, my trust, my peace of mind. It was time to take it all back. I drafted a letter to her boss's wife. I kept it short and factual, attaching the emails and photos as proof. By morning, I'd mailed it off, knowing it would likely detonate Jessica's entire world. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Let us know in the comments. But the unexpected ending came just a few days later. Jessica showed up at my motel, banging on the door like a madwoman. When I opened it, she looked disheveled and desperate, her eyes wild. "Mike, please," she begged. "We need to talk." "What now?" I asked, my voice cold. She shoved a piece of paper into my hands. It was a pregnancy test. Positive. My head spun. "Is this mine?" I asked, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. "Of course it's yours," she cried. "I wasn't with anyone else during those months. I swear to God, Mike, this baby is ours." For a moment, I felt the weight of everything crashing down on me. Could I really walk away from her if she was carrying my child? Was I about to become tied to this woman, this liar, forever? What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Let us know in the comments. But then I looked into her eyes and saw something. Fear, not love. This wasn't about wanting me back. It was about self-preservation. She knew the divorce would leave her with nothing, and now she was grasping at straws. "I don't believe you," I said flatly, handing the test back. "Take a paternity test when the baby's born. Until then, I'm done." Jessica's face crumpled, but I didn't stay to watch. I walked past her, out the door, and into the cool evening air. Months later, I got a call from her. She'd had the baby, and as expected, the paternity test confirmed the child wasn't mine. It was Elliot's. By then, I had moved to a new city, started fresh, and left everything about Jessica behind. She tried to trap me one last time, but her lies had finally caught up with her. The unexpected ending wasn't just her downfall, it was my freedom.